Great. Well, good afternoon, or is it still morning or afternoon? Good late morning to you then, in this case. Well, thank you for coming to our two meetings. So it's two meetings, but they all sort of in one. We've got first one, which is annual meeting of parishioners. Anyone who lives in the parish can attend. And then the second one, annual parochial church meeting, only exclusively if you are on electoral roll. One will flow into the other. So we're going to start with the first one, which is annual meeting of parishioners. And as you can see, the first item of agenda is a prayer. So I'll pray for us. Heavenly Father, thank you for being with us this morning. Thank you for being a faithful God. And we pray, Father, that all that we're going to discuss and hear will bring glory to you. We pray, Father, for your presence here. May we listen to you. May we listen to each other. May we seek your will. In the name of Jesus. Amen. Okay, that concludes item number 1 of the first meeting. Apologies, Do we have any apologies? Okay, no apologies. Item number 3, we need to approve the minutes of this meeting from the last year. And you can see those minutes on page 4 of book 1, yellow book. So and it's very short minutes. So any factual incorrections or anything you'd like to say at this point? If not, then we're going to approve them. And I need someone to propose and to second. So who would like to propose? I need someone to propose. Okay, we've got Leslie. And Adrian, you would like to second. Okay, and so who would like to approve those minutes? Put your hand up. Shall we say approved by majority?
Who seconded them, sorry?
Adrian Harvey seconded. Okay, and so the final item on the agenda for the first meeting, which is annual meeting of parishioners, election of church wardens. So we had Brian and Mark for the last year. I much appreciate for your help and assistance that you've given to me as the vicar to maintain the mission and the focus of this church. And I'm grateful that you've offered to help for another year. So we elect church wardens every year, so as you know, and the maximum they can stay in their role for 6 years. So Brian will be going into his 5th year if he's elected, and Mark will be going in his 3rd year if he is elected. So they've been already nominated and seconded. Now I just need you to approve them or disapprove them. So, and we're going to do them together. So who would like Mark and Brian to continue for another year as our church wardens? I would like you to put your hand up. Yeah, so it's clear majority, approved by majority.
Do we need a proposer or a seconder?
No, we don't, because they've been proposed and seconded on their form. Yeah, very much appreciated. Well, that concludes our first meeting. So we flow into our second meeting, which is annual parochial church meeting. And if you are on our electoral roll, then you can stay. So again, we're going to begin with approving the minutes of that meeting. And you can find the minutes to freshen up on pages 4 to 8 of this yellow book or booklet. Anyone would like to mention anything about them before we approve them? Just like with the first set, I need someone to propose it and someone to second it. Tony, you would like to propose those minutes? Tony Bicknell would like to propose. Who would like to second them? Okay, we've got Roy Wenham seconding. And if you would like to approve the second set of minutes, would you please put your hand up? Approved by majority. Thank you very much. So item number 2, annual report for 2024. A few things I'd like to mention. First of all, electoral roll. And you can find that information on page 13. Let me very quickly, run to page 13. And as you can see there, at the end of the year, there were 156 people on our church electoral roll, which is the same number of people that we had in 2023. We need to remember that during 2024, we had a revision of electoral roll, which is very different to renewal, which we had in 2025. And obviously, this meeting is all about 2024. So as we look at 2024, number remained the same. But I can tell you now, for 2025, numbers have changed once we've done our renewal. But that's for next year. I'll tell you that, next year. For now, you need to know, last year, we remained the same, 156 people. Okay. Okay, report on fabric, goods, and ornament. So again, if you look at the same page 13, there you can see and read for yourself the church wardens, and it's their responsibility. They have undertaken the annual inventory of all the goods and fabric of this church. And according to their report, everything is in good order. Lovely. So all I say at this stage, if you would like to find out more, what they do and what they've done and what's in good order and what's on that inventory, you can always ask them. You can ask to see a copy of that inventory, or you can just speak to them face to face after this meeting or at any time when you wish. Are we all happy to move on? Okay, so 2C, PCC review of the year. And if at this stage I ask our PCC secretary, who is next here to me, Sarah Lockhart, speak to us. Tell us about the last year. What did we do? What did we achieve?
Thank you, Dimitri. Morning, everybody. So, for our PCC review of the year for 2024, there were 14 members on the PCC, and we met 6 times during 2024, with the average attendance being 80%. We made a point of discussing safeguarding at each PCC meeting, and there were no concerns raised that required any further action at any point through the year. So at I'll go through each of the months with the sort of key points that were discussed. At the PCC meeting in January, the all-age worship team recommended using the first Sunday of each month for a new style of service, and a number of suggestions were discussed. The PCC also agreed to approve the budget paper that was prepared by the PCC treasurer, David Leach. Discussion also took place as to whether it would be possible to employ a curate at some point, but it was agreed that this would require a substantial degree of additional funding. In March, we focused very much on the church development plan, and we focused on the topics of music and the structure of Sunday services. And this month saw the first service led by the music band, and there were positive comments in terms of how this had been received. The Racial Justice Covenant was also approved unanimously by the PCC, with an agreement to review after a 2-year period. In May, we welcomed 2 new PCC members and said farewell to one other. And at this PCC meeting, the appointment of PCC officers and members of the various subcommittees were also approved. Additionally, the PCC approved the following resolution. The PCC of the parish of St Mary the Virgin Horsell in the Diocese of Guildford in the county of Surrey, as one of the appointing bodies for governors, gives its approval for the Horsell Church of England aided junior school in Woking to become an academy with Newark Learning Partners Church Academy Trust. At the July meeting, it was agreed that the children's group Twinkle Tots would cease, and that Tiny Treasures would remain as the only preschool children's group. However, it was agreed that there would need to be some Christian input into these sessions. It was also unanimously agreed by the PCC that the Diocese of Guildford Statement of Safeguarding be adopted. In September, a number of PCC attended the Diocesan Parish Development Planning meeting, and discussions were started on possible options for changing the structure and timings of services. And we also started planning for the Christmas period. And for the final meeting in 2024 in November, we continue to discuss the possible options for changing the service structure and timings, and the ownership of many of the areas detailed in the church development plan were also assigned. So that's a summary of 2024.
Thank you very much. Any questions to Sarah regarding PCC and their business for the last 20 months? No questions. Thank you very much, Sarah. So our next item of agenda is finances. David?
Thank you. And I've got some slides because I like lots of graphs and things. So they'll be coming up. Thank you.
There we go.
Okay, thanks. So last year there were two unusual items in the account. One was in December we received some upfront rent for 6 Wardens Park Road that, for this year. And in expenditure, we spent some money on the St Andrew's Room redevelopment plans. So those two items I'm going to put to the side for now. Everything else sort of excludes that and looks at the main running ones. So if we go on to the next slide, £171,000. That's how much it costs to run St Mary's last year, each year. And then £97,000, that's how much we get in giving. And that's all giving. That's regular giving, loose cash giving, donations, gift aid. So that then leaves me with a £74,000 gap that we need to cover by other means other than giving, because we're not giving enough to cover that. We go on to the next slide. There are areas where we do get it. We get, at the moment, £57,000 from rental income and interest on endowments, and about £6,000 from hiring the building and funeral fees. So we get quite a lot from previous generations. We really have a lot to thank our predecessors for the giving they've given us that gives us the income now, and that's before we consider the cost of this building. I mean, if we were looking to build something like this today, it would cost 10 million plus, and so amazing in what people in the past have given to support us today. But this generation is not paying its way, unfortunately, and that deficit might grow. We mentioned earlier that we can't fund a curate because we're relying on that income from the 6 Wardens Park Road. We're fortunate at the moment that interest rates are high, so we're getting quite a good interest income, but I don't think that will last. And even with that, we still have a deficit of 11,000. So what are we spending it on? If I go on to the next slide. The main area is our parish share, which is 98,000, which I'll come on to. We've got 28,000 on children's work, 13,000 on office, utilities 6,000, 5,000 insurance, outward giving, we give away 10%, that's 13,000, and then 8,000 on other running costs, which is everything to keep this building going, to keep the churchyard going, and all the consumables we use in all our services and activities. If I go on to the next one, this is what's our parish share. It costs 68,000 to have a vicar. Now, I'll make it clear that every time that's not how much Dimitri gets. That's how much it costs. So it includes training future vicars, it includes pensions for previous vicars, and all the training as well that Dimitri does. We have 3,000 on safeguarding. We contribute £4,000 to support chaplaincies in hospitals, prisons, and armed forces. In amongst then there's support for the schools, which is sort of 2,000. In amongst the share costs, that's things that the diocese pay for centrally. So, for instance, all the copyright licenses, but also the advice we then get on buildings, advice we get on HR, which when we were hiring a children and families worker, we got to help on that. And then there's a contribution to a national church. This is a sort of bit of backwards and forwards in that we pay money to the national church, And then the national church then gives money back to the diocese, which is then used for certain projects, which are like Youth Catalyst being a big one that they're looking to do a lot of youth work across the diocese. So I'll move on to the next slide, which is giving trends. So giving has been falling generally. We have giving campaigns. We had one in 2017, which was successful and raised more money. We had one last year, and we actually got a lot of income, a lot of a rise, but it doesn't really show because unfortunately, we had lost a few people all last year and who had given in total about £10,000 a year. So that campaign really replaced it. The campaign was also done near the end of the year, so we didn't see the full year. But why is our income falling? If I go on to the next slide, this hopefully will be very familiar to you. This shows what our giving is. So it's just that we have fewer people giving. It's not that people are giving less or not increasing it, but we're having to spread it across more people. So if I go on to the next one, this is giving per person. Little gap for COVID, which I left, but if we looked at our average attendance and our giving, it's holding up per person. But 80 people attending is just not enough to cover the cost of running a church. A few examples, for instance, St John's in West Byfleet, they're very similar to us. They have about 80 people. They can't afford their own vicar. They've merged with Newhall and share a vicar between two churches. Same things happened in Aphill, Brookwood. And really, that's, unless something changes, that could be what the future could be. Our generation is not paying our way. We're fortunate on previous ones, but unless we can pay our way, we won't be able to fund having our own vicar for the future. And I could ask for more money from each of you, but I know how generous each of you give, and I'm very thankful. So the way for us to pay our way has to be to grow the church, which is why we've been trying to look at what we can do, and we'll hear more about that. Finally, I want to say thanks. There could be many people that I'm thankful for. I do want to thank everyone who responded to my giving campaign. I was really pleased by the level of responses I've got. And the other person I particularly want to thank is Brian, who's took over doing the banking last year. It's looking shy, but every week Brian counts the money. He walks off to the bank. It's sort of one of the hidden things he does behind the scenes, and it is really much appreciated doing that week in, week out. So thank you, Brian. If anyone's got any questions or anything they want to ask me, you can ask me at any time. You don't have to ask me now. Do come up to me and speak to me. I'll happily talk about the finances with people. But if anyone's got a question they want to raise in front of the whole meeting, now's your opportunity.
Shall we just record our thanks to David and all the hard work he does for us? And I think, what David said, it's absolutely true and absolutely clear, and in a way sets the tone to what is to come in this meeting. If I didn't make it clear, we also would like to record our thanks to Sarah as our PCC secretary. I can't remember whether we've skipped that bit or not. Sarah, can you make sure you just include it? We give thanks to Sarah.
It's in capital.
Absolutely. Make it bigger. Okay, staying on accounts. So if you remember, last year we appointed our independent examiner who looked at our accounts and approved them and written the report, and his name is and was David Weller. So obviously we need to look now in 2025 and agree to either reappoint him or appoint someone else. But David highly recommend David, and he does it for a very small token, bottle of wine, So I don't see a reason why we cannot reappoint him again. So do we need to again, David, am I right to say, propose and second? Yeah, okay. Who would like to propose David Weller? Yes, okay. We've got, James Connolly proposing. Who would like to second? Helen Edwards. Thank you for the hands I can see. You will have a chance to. Would you please put your hand if you agree with David Weller to be reappointed for the next year, for this year 2025, to be our independent examiner? Thank you very much. And if you're interested in his report for the last year, if you look at page 21 of Yellow Book, then you can see what he said. Great. Okay. Item number 4, elections. So first of all, Deanery Synod. We don't have any elections because we don't have any nominations, as simple as it is. We have 2 vacancies. So if you know someone who would like to encourage someone to represent us on the Deanery Synod, then please, by all means. So we only have 1 Deanery rep at the moment, and that's David himself. But based on the size of our church, of our electoral roll, we can have 3 people on the Deanery Synod. We only have 1. So no vacancies. And I explain why it is. Parochial Church Council, there will be some elections. We have vacancies, but we have people who are going forward for it. Well, first of all, we had 1 resignation, just to be clear. So we have Tim Jordan, who stepped down for personal reasons. We also have 2 people seeking re-election. They've done their term of 3 years, and they would like to be re-elected for another 3 years. That is Helen Edwards and Vanessa McMurtry. And we have 3 new people who would like to be elected on the PCC for the first time. Sandra Bayliss-Hare, Ian Hare, and Sarah Lockhart. Sarah was co-opted last year, but this year she wants to be elected and to become an ordinary PCC member. So we have 5 people. Let me mention their names. Helen Edwards, Vanessa McMurtry, Sandra Bayliss-Hare, Ian Hare, and Sarah Lockhart. We've got their forms, so they've been already proposed and seconded. We just need to elect them, and we have enough vacancies for them to be elected. We just need your vote for that. So if you are in favor of those 5 people that I've mentioned to be our ordinary PCC members, would you please put your hand up? Yeah, fair to say by majority? Okay, thank you very much. Approved by majority. So that concludes our elections. Annual reports, item number 5, book number 2. It's a separate book, you might have read it. I wouldn't probably say much about it. All I would like to say, I'm very grateful to everyone who attends our church, everyone who oversees a particular ministry or a particular activity or particular initiative. Thank you for everything that you do, and thank you for your reports. If you have any questions, I would suggest speak directly to those people who oversee a certain area or a certain ministry within our church. They will be probably better placed to answer your questions than I am at this stage. So. Item number 6, Vicar's report for 2024. So my report for 2024 is somehow different because, usually I would stand here and I would tell you everything what we were doing, bit by bit, activity by activity, item by item. This time it's actually very different because in a way it's more like a visionary report for me. I would like to look back and say, this is a bit of a history, what was happening in the past. That's where we now, and that's where we're heading, and give you a few glimpses of hope. And then more people who will come after me, hopefully they'll share more hope, more glimpses of hope with you. So please do bear with me for the next couple of minutes. So my report as the vicar of this church for 2020-2024. In my opinion, 2020-2024 was a promising year for us as a church. Why, you may ask? Because I believe it was a very special year. It's a year when we started arriving at a shared understanding that change was needed. As you know, we started this consultation period, consultation process. We've gone through various phases, and we are right, at the end of phase 3. But we needed this consultation period, we needed all to arrive to this shared understanding. Otherwise, it would be difficult for us to agree on anything and achieve anything. So this shared understanding started, well, it had to start somewhere, didn't it? It started with the church wardens and myself. And as we kept talking about it, and as we start asking other people for their opinions and consulting them, this shared understanding was spreading from one group to the other. It spread to the staff team, to the PCC, and eventually the whole church, because we ask everyone for your opinion. On the basis of this shared understanding, the church survey was conducted, to which many of us have contributed. Not only we ask 8 o'clock congregation, 10 o'clock congregation, evening congregations, we also ask groups like Messy Church, on mom and toddler groups, what they think about us and what things we do and can do better for them and for others. So in total, if you know or not, 135 people have responded and contributed to this survey. This shared understanding captured the necessity for us to change. And I think this word change, you'll hear it quite a lot. You already were hearing it from David, you're hearing it from myself, and you'll hear it from others. More than 80% of the survey respondents agreed with this idea that we need to change. And you can see that there behind me on the screen. The shared understanding brought to light the number of following facts, which I would like to share with you. And those facts, they're not secrets, they're not surprises there. We know they are our present reality. Our numbers were declining. You're familiar with this slide? Over the last 20 years, we've gone down from on average 205 people weekly attending our Sunday services in 2014 to about 73 in 2024. Our average age was increasing, our giving was going down, less people were involved in serving, and parish communion as the main service was no longer attracting new people of any age. There was a greater desire to do things differently by introducing new initiatives, more informal services, and reforming the existing ones. The identified decline did not happen overnight. And it's not COVID who mainly contributed, but lots of things. It's actually quite evident from the data shared with you from the results of the survey. We were in decline over the last 20 years. And maybe even more. We only have data for the last 20 years. We don't know surely what was happening before that time. As we know, COVID did not help either. But we can't just blame COVID and that's it. According to the diocesan statistics, if we can have our next slide, churches in the diocese gradually recovering. They started showing some signs of recovery. But we, as a church, somehow different to them. We're still gradually creeping down as opposed to going up. 10 years ago, after the results of the first survey in 2014, the vicar at the time, you might remember her, Sarah Hayes, asked the PCC to consider whether the parish communion should remain the main service at St. Mary's. So they had their survey, they look at the results. Obviously, there were some questions. She got together with the PCC and she asked this question: what do you think? Should we remain to be the same as we were for so many years, or should we change? At that point, the PCC agreed that parish communion should remain the main service. But in early 2025, the PCC voted by majority that this was no longer the case, based on the results of our latest survey, 24 and 25. The PCC agreed that the way should be given to more informal services to be introduced on Sunday. And for me, this signifies the enormous shift in church's culture and understanding of current reality from which we cannot hide. We know where we are, and we know what's coming our way. David already mentioned, those churches who are struggling or who are like us may be asked to be merged with other local parishes, may be asked to share the vicar or share other resources that might be coming our way if we choose not to do anything different what we were doing. So I'd like to congratulate you, in a way, for coming to that reality that change is needed. And I would like to congratulate the PCC for making that important and strategic decision, because clearly we cannot stay and remain the same. According to the results of the church survey, as I said before, more than 80% of us agreed the change was needed. And that was shared with you, and I mentioned that to you too. But as soon as we started informing the affected groups, it became apparent the change was not as welcome as the results showed. Basically what I'm trying to say, as soon as change starts affecting someone, people get upset and unhappy about it. If change doesn't affect you and what you do, your initiative, your service, your activity, then it's fine. Change them, don't touch me. That's an attitude, and I don't think it's the right attitude. I want to stress that change is not easy, but it is needed. And as outward-looking church, we shouldn't be just thinking about ourselves, our own needs, the things we do and the services we attend, but we need to start thinking about others. And Michael Templeman, mentioned it in a great way in his sermon. In fact, your sermon, Michael, sets a great foundation for this meeting. And you finish with a lovely prayer, because it's all about others and how we can share with them the good news of Jesus. So as outward-looking church, we need to think about others, not about ourselves. What can we do as the church to bring them in, to attract them? What was stopping them from coming to our church for the last 20 years? Clearly, we didn't get it right. But hopefully now we are in the position to shape our own reality, our own future, by the decision that we've made and will start implementing very soon. Change requires open-minded attitude, united spirit, being prepared to give up old things and also being prepared to do new things, being prepared to do current things but perhaps differently. But above all, change requires walking in faith. For us to manage change effectively and to give ourselves a good chance to succeed in the following weeks and months, maybe even years, I appeal to you to do the following. And if we can have our next slide. These 4 things. First of all, it's important for us to be respectful. Be respectful of other people's views and ideas. The church has spoken. We've got the results of the survey. There is no room for rhetoric such as, I will stop giving, or I will go to another church if I don't like what's happening here. That is not helpful. That is not healthy. Please don't do that. We need to be united. If we are to achieve great things, the unity of spirit is important. It's essential. We should not be arguing, quarreling, pulling each other in different directions. We just should agree and accept that's what's happening and pray that we will see some fruit of our labor. And that leads me to my third point. Yes, we need to be prayerful. For any change should be undergirded by prayer as we commit our plans to God and seek His will, not ours. And finally, be faithful. Be prepared to step out of your comfort zones. And we need to do that because, if we are to do things differently, we need to be prepared to step out of our comfort zones as we explore together the uncharted waters of change and as we walk by faith and not by sight. Amen. Right. Thank you very much for listening. Item number 7, Vision for the Children and Families Work by Rebecca Connolly.
Hello everyone, I just want to say I've really been enjoying my time here. I will have been here 2 years in August. And yes, Dimitri's asked me to share with you the vision and strategy for children's and families work. But if you want me to email it out to you afterwards, then please do let me know. So can I have the first slide, please? So first of all, I would just like to say thank you to everyone who volunteers with children's and families work at St Mary's. You are so valuable, and this work is really important. We're raising up the next generation in faith. So thank you. Next slide, please. So this is the Children and Families mission statement, taking the light of the gospel to the younger generation. Next slide. So when I was praying about the vision for St Mary's for children's and families work, this is called the prayer for Ephesians in the Bible, but I sense God was saying this is the prayer for children's and families work at St Mary's Church, and I'll just read it out. For this reason, I kneel before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth derives its name. I pray that out of his glorious riches, he may strengthen you with power through his Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power together with all the Lord's holy people to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we can ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us, to him be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations, forever and ever. Amen. And all of these groups are a way of going deep into God's love and his power at work in us to bring about his kingdom. So it's a really encouraging verse. Next slide, please. So these are the different children's and families groups we have. Next slide. So Jesus and Me. So this is a group for children aged 3 years old and upwards during the 10 a.m. Sunday service. And the aim of this group is we're growing children in faith. Why do we run this group? We want our children to be rooted in Jesus' deep love and to share that love with others and to be confident of their identity in Christ and released by the Spirit to be leaders of hope and change. Next slide. This is just some work that they've done. They're all fantastic artists. Next slide. So Messy Church. This is an all-age, fresh expression of church. Messy Church values Christ-centered for all ages based on creativity, hospitality, and celebration. And the aim of the group is to help people encounter Jesus as Lord and Saviour. Why do we run this group? We want our families and others who attend to meet with Jesus and to have a personal relationship with him. And this is some pictures of Messy Church. Sue and Brian working hard doing the refreshments. Next slide. So Tiny Treasures, this is our Tuesday baby and toddler group. The aim of the group is to refresh the adults and introduce them to God whilst the children play in a safe and fun space. We want the parents and carers to meet with Jesus in this significant season of their lives where they are often open to spiritual refreshment. If the adults are refreshed and find Jesus for themselves, then this will have a positive impact on their families. And I share a 5-minute thought for the day, which introduces the adults to God in a gentle, relevant, and accessible way. And we also offer prayer to the adults. And then we sing songs, and we always end with Big Family of God by Nick and Becky Drake. And they always love that song. If I miss it, they're like, oh, please play it. I love that song. So, and then Open the Book. So this is an exciting storytelling project where Bible stories are shared with children in a way that is fun, interactive, and memorable. What's the aim of the group? Taking the light of the gospel to the younger generation in our primary schools. We want to share Jesus' love with the children and teachers and for them to meet with Jesus as we're telling the Bible stories. And this is some pictures. First Sunday, an informal service on the first Sunday of every month for all the family with a music group. Why do we run this group? We want to help people grow in faith and connect with God, all ages together. Why? We want people to meet with Jesus and to follow and to serve him. And this is a description that's really helpful to categorise our groups and see which of these categories they fit into. This is inside out ministry. Our work is with the children, young people and families who are already in church. Our role is to equip, empower and enable them to live out their faith in their context and to reach out to their friends. So all of these groups fall into that category. Outside in, our work is with the children, young people and families who are not yet in church. Our role is to take the good news of Jesus to them and establish them as a group of believers where they are and then bring them into the family of the church. The reason why Messy Church falls into both those categories is we do have families from Messy Church who come on a Sunday morning who also come along to Messy Church. And we have Christians at Messy Church, but we also have agnostics coming and atheists, a variety of different people, but a great opportunity to share God's love with them. So we want to bring our outside in groups into the family of the church. So this is how it might work. So open the book, invite them to Messy Church, first Sunday, Jesus and Me at 10 a.m. Parish Communion. Same for Tiny Treasures. They can take that route, sort of, invite them to Messy Church, first Sunday, 10 a.m. Parish Communion. And next slide, please. So open the book, steps to transition, praying for the teachers and children that they meet with Jesus, advertising Messy Church in the school's newsletter, and at the end of open the book assemblies. This has really increased the numbers at Messy Church. And then Tiny Treasures, we can introduce them to God with the thought for the day, praying that the children and adults would meet with Jesus, advertising in the group What's On for Children and Families at St Mary's. But I think most importantly, it's about building relationships with the parents and carers and then inviting them to the other services and activities we run. Messy Church, steps to transition, build relationships with our families and tell them about Jesus and the good news. Praying for them that they would meet with Jesus, inviting them and advertising the groups. And I'd love to see, some of you come to Messy Church and, just be there just to chat to the people. It would be great if you could do that at some point. And then finally about volunteering. So at Jesus and Me, we currently have 3 people officially on team. So we really do need more people on the team. Roles are helping or leading sessions, whatever you feel comfortable with. Messy Church, we have 7 people on the team. But we do need more. Roles would be setting up, setting down, craft leaders, serving refreshments, AV or welcoming. But you can just also come along and chat to the families. Tiny Treasures, 7 people. Roles setting up, setting down, serving refreshments, welcoming, thought for the day, building relationships with the parents and carers. Open the book, we have 6 people for junior school, and we have a smaller team, 4 people for infant schools. So if you'd love to come and volunteer, act out, we take it in turns to be director and organise costumes and characters. And for all these roles, we follow the diocese's safer recruitment policy for all volunteer roles. There is an induction process for volunteers, so you'll have appropriate support and oversight meetings. And we meet for socials throughout the year, so it is fun being on team. If you're interested in volunteering for any of our children and families ministry groups, please get in contact with me, email me, or talk to me in person. Just thanks again for all your hard work. Thank you.
Rebecca, thank you very much for all your hard work, and thank you very much to all of you who are supporting and helping Rebecca to achieve the great vision that we have for young people of this church. So, Brian, is it over to you? Please.
Thank you. Forgive me for sitting down, but I've been directed towards this mic, which is right in front of me, which is quite convenient. Last year, we obtained planning permission from Woking Borough Council for our extension of St Andrew's Room. We'd also obtained planning permission from Deanery, from the Consistory Court and from the various preservation societies. This had all taken far too long, actually, a long time. Woking Borough Council are only working from home now, so it seems to take ages for them to do anything. During that period of time, we suffered quite a lot of inflation, particularly in concrete, in steels, in wood, and in labour costs. And so, having got the permission, we sort of looked at our sums again and realised that we could not afford the ambitious plans that we had permission for from everybody, and we wanted to go ahead with. So we started looking at what can we afford, a much more modest affair. Now, if I could just divulge the financial situation slightly. As a church, we get revenue expenditure, which we give every week or every month, and that can be spent. We get legacies and other large sums, and in some cases, those large sums of money have to be kept in perpetuity, but we can draw the interest down and we can use the interest to fund the church. And in other cases, we get largely legacies, large sums of money, relatively so, that can only be spent on large capital projects. And that's the funding that we are proposing to use for the St Andrew's Room development. So it's not that we're taking money away from what the church would normally use in any way to keep itself going on a month-by-month basis, but it's a large sum which has been given to the church very kindly, usually in people's wills, that we can be spent on capital projects. And that's the money we're looking to use, and that money at the moment is not sufficient to cover the ambitious scheme. Now, in discussions with our Archdeacon, the Venerable Martin Breadmore, he said, well, you've got to keep to the scheme that you've been given permission for from everybody. You can't sort of go off and start coming up with new schemes. But what you can do is you can say the big scheme is going to be dealt with in phases. And phase 1 of that scheme could be something which is affordable. And phase 2, 3, etc., can wait until we have other funding that we can carry that forward. And that largely depends upon legacies being received in the future. So what could we do within our current funding and within our current plan? And what we've come up with is a plan to extend St Andrew's Room in that direction, towards the east, as far as the old yew tree, which is there, and to move the kitchen over into that area and to extend the current kitchen and toilet area into an area where we would have 3 toilets, one of which would be I'm not supposed to say disabled toilet, but accessible toilet. So that's the plan that we've now sort of put together, and that's a plan which is well within our financial means, and that plan fits within our overall plan, because the Archdeacon did say you can't do anything in your phases that would prevent you actually building the whole plan which has been agreed. So this we're putting forward as phase 1, and it doesn't need to go through all those permissions again because it's just a phased approach, and that's something we can afford. We spoke to local builders. We believe that it is affordable. We believe it'll give us a lot of the basics we're after. It will give us a better kitchen, larger kitchen, so we can actually cook and prepare food in there, and have 2 sinks, etc., a dishwasher, what have you. And we'll have 3 toilets, which we desperately need because it is embarrassing only having 1 there. It'll give us a slightly larger St Andrew's Room, and because it will have a loft area above it, it will give us more storage, loft area storage, and rather than the rickety ladder that goes up there, we'll have a proper staircase. And that's all within phase 1. That's our plan, and that's what we're now hoping to move forward on. Any questions? No? Good, thank you. Thank you.
Shall we record our thanks to Brian
and the team?
Yes, and Andrew subcommittee, indeed. Thank you. Sandra, you've got anything to tell us? Oh, very kind.
Firstly, Sandra had a tooth out this morning, which explains why she's asked me to say a few words on her behalf. Just pull the up a minute. Right, okay. Firstly, Sandra would like to say that she was absent from her role of the last year because of illness and health issues. But she would like to say, convey a thanks to Leslie and Helen for filling in for her services. So that's what she wanted to say there. And also to further say that, okay, she's still going to say this bit here. Yeah, she's happy to resume her role as the PSO, and she's pleased to say that all mandatory policies are in place and training is up to date. She will be offering a few face-to-face training sessions in the autumn to which anyone who is interested is welcome. And she will, so the church will have a safeguarding Sunday planned for later in the year. So that's what Sandra wanted to convey. So yeah. Thanks very much.
Yeah. We've got the message, Sandra. Thank you very much. Yeah. I think we're very pleased, Sandra, that you are resuming your activities, your duties, as a safeguarding officer of this church.
Yeah.
And we're pleased to hear that you're better, or getting better at least. So it's great. And thank you very much for Helen and Leslie for stepping in Sandra's absence. I think all Sandra wanted to say, everything is in hand. All the policies, everything, training, everything is in hand. We take safeguarding very seriously in this church. I know some of you were concerned what recently you've seen on TV. If we have any questions, if we are in doubt, we can always go to diocese and ask. So we're not keeping it quiet. If anything, we ask, but nothing to report as such. Thank you. Mark?
Thank you, Dimitri. And I've got some slides to share with you to talk through some of the changes that we're talking about and have been planning here for St Mary's for the future. And by now you should have realized that change is happening and change is needed. Because unless we change, there will not be the parish church with a vicar. We will be combining with other parishes and all our services will be shared across those different parishes. That is why change is needed. Firstly, thank you very much for all of you who have engaged with us as part of the change process. That consultation formally kicked off in November, but you've heard from Sarah's report that the PCC had been discussing that for a year previously. So this isn't something which has been dreamt up immediately. Some of these changes have already happened. You may not have noticed it, but you may have done. And also they address things that you here have said to us that you didn't like, things you said you thought should change, would be more positive if they were. And examples being, there was a general niggle at starting services on times. That is happening now. And if you want to check on that, look on YouTube. You'll see all the evidence of the services for that. You also told us how you wanted to be conscious of the service lengths, so they didn't go too long. And again, that is happening. You mentioned to us also how you prefer not to have extreme long lengths of periods of silence during the 10 o'clock service. Again, that is something we've listened to you and addressed. You said you wanted the sermons. Many people raised comments about the sermons, but the biggest one was to do with the length, the relevance, and also the request to have more variety of preachers and speakers at that. We have already taken on board, and that again has been underway for several months already. I'm highlighting some of these things have already taken place, and there have been gradual changes, and we've been experimenting, and we're already seeing positive results from those. We're no longer at the communion service at 10 o'clock processing the collection up. We've removed the cloth from the Holy Communion table behind us. The vicar has not been robing for some services. And we've also had a major focus on music here at St Mary's. And that's been very much symbolized by some of the physical things, the new positioning of the choir over the side here, with the songs and selections and the musicians. And I'd like at this stage to put on record how positive a step it was today, the service today, of the choir's performance. They were really hearing, the playing and leading the congregation in worship songs, and that was a real positive sign of how change can bring benefits. So thank you, choir, for your accommodation for that and in the things. Other things that you may or may not be aware of, but that we are doing and have been doing for many months. Rebecca told you about all the good work done in the children's working in JAM, and now we are sharing that with all the congregation as part of those services. We aren't just sending the children out, they are part of things, because it's very much an intergenerational aspect we're looking for as part of our congregation. Again, for some of you will be pleased to know that we have found ourselves a new organist to join our team of musicians. What a wonderful blessing that was to have someone join for us, and we're lucky to have Christopher, who will be joining our loyal team of pianists who are not going away, and we still very much also appreciate them. Thanks for those of you in the congregation who refreshed our church library to help strengthen faith development, which was again another part of the things in the survey you asked us to address, to support people's things. Again, we're experimenting with how we distribute communion. And again, this is based on feedback from yourselves. In order to help move with the times and make the church more appealing to families and youngs, we invested in things like the beanbags, bright, and the children have been loving those for those. We've also looked at things like kneelers. You also remember some of the things we've got, some things we've gone back to. So for instance, now we've gone back to, again, reminding people all our Bible readings, where they are being found in the Bible, what page numbers, to help people follow them. Again, this has had positive feedbacks from people. The engine room of prayer is a key thing we've been doing, and we've been doing this for several years. However, some of you said to us the time wasn't attractive for you. You had other things on that. And so we've now set up an additional engine room for prayer, which is going to be taking place has already started taking place on the first Friday here in church at 10 o'clock. And the vicar would welcome as many people as want to can come and join us in that prayer for things. The PCC also worked out how can we use our space in the church things, and how can we try and make our church warmer. One of the decisions we took as a PCC was to remove the pews over on that side there. You might remember we used to have the pews the whole way back. 10 years ago we decided to remove those to give us more flexibility, and it's for that reason we're able to offer Messy Church for all the people, because we need that service, that space for them, that flexibility. However, we didn't quite have the heart to get rid of those pews. 10 years later, the pews are still there, just pushed up against the wall. We now are embracing and making active decisions not to put things off, and we are going to be removing permanently those pews. They're going to be made available to anyone in the community of parishioners who would like them. So if you want them, spread the word. That is an active decision we are taking rather than putting off tough decisions. And again, that will help with the temperature as well, because they block the radiators. The PCC also said, as part of this flexibility, let's look at the pews on this side. No, don't worry, we're not getting rid of all the pews, but we are looking and considering maybe about removing 2 more at the back to give us more flexibility for things. On the next slide here, you'll see further things that were happening, all things. One of the key parts that we needed to do was improve our external communications. When I say external communications, that is not to you here, the loyal faithful. We're trying to reach out to the people who do not come to our church today for services. And so we're using social media, and the church now is much more active on that, whether it be Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or whatever. Yes, St Mary's has presence in all of those and is posting content relevant for those. But I repeat, these things here, external communication, is not for the benefit of yourselves. It's the benefit of those others we want to come to know Jesus. We want to come to serve us and worship with us in a variety of ways and flexible ways, for that. And so that is why the communications team, and we set up a special committee to address that, and they are working very well at that. Our informal service on the first Sunday has been getting stronger and stronger month on month, and the music band is a key part of that. And I thank all of those involved in that music band. It is making a difference. It is getting real positive feedback from people in the community who are coming and to St Mary's for the first time, and the word is spreading to their peer groups that St Mary's is accessible to the younger generation for that. Going forward, the PCC decided that music band will be playing not only on the first Sunday, but also on the third Sunday of that. Along with that, we also decided as a PCC that we're going to be having that informal services twice a month. So first and third Sunday of each month is going to be an informal service, and the second and fourth will be the Holy Communion service. And that change is going to be starting as of the beginning of May. So I'll repeat that because I know it's a significant change. Significant change is now there's going to be an informal service on the first and third Sunday of the month, and Holy Communion on the second and the fourth for that. Jam is a key part of the evenings, and Jam will continue. Going forward, Jam will be offered on the second, third, and fourth Sunday of the month. We also have looked at the 8 o'clock service. The PCC first looked at the 8 o'clock services 18 months ago. At that stage then, we were looking at the evidence of the 8 o'clock congregation, which we know is a very loyal and faithful community, and that is completely acknowledged. However, equally well, what also must be acknowledged is the numbers attending the 8 o'clock service have been declining year on year. And we had all the evidence for you and for the graphs, and you'll see those in the presentations we have made. So the PCC has decided that going forward, we're going to be offering one Holy Communion service each Sunday. One Holy Communion service each Sunday. And therefore, the 8 o'clock service will now be taking place on the first and third Sunday, which is the same time as the informal services. So we would welcome anyone who wants Holy Communion to come to that service on 8 o'clock on the first and third, or to come to the 10 o'clock service on the second and fourth. The PCC, before making that decision, looked at the service patterns of over 20 Church of England services in the neighbourhood. There was very clear evidence that we at St Mary's were out on a limb with the number of Holy Communion services we were offering. Okay? And so we're trying to address that. We also have been working together with the Guildford Diocese Mission Enabler team, and we've met with them multiple times to look at the changes and the suggestions of things. We've asked for advice of best practices of how parishes similar to ourselves have been addressing. And our changes we're proposing to you that we're going to be implementing as an experimentation are directly in line with the best practices that the diocese is recommending. It is saying that you should not be spending all your attention talking to your regular worshippers. You need to be appealing to other people who are not coming to you today. It is acknowledged that it's not always easy. It is acknowledged that will upset some people. Unfortunately, in life, whenever you make a change, some people will love the change. Other people will resist the change, but many of them get used to the change over the time. And that is why in the first slide on this presentation here, I highlighted some of the things we've been doing for 6 months already. 6 months of things, you haven't even noticed some of the things, but you've started to see the results. For instance, moving the choir positioning for that. There are other things we are doing and looking forward to be moving forward. We heard about the need for study courses. And that is a key thing that diocese is encouraging, and a key thing in the survey you said you wanted us to be looking at. And we put on the course, the Lent course for Paul's stories, and we've also now got other study course options to support faith development and Bible studies, and you'll hear more about those in the coming weeks. That concludes the section I was asked to present today, which was to taking you through the consultation which the PC started over 18 months ago, which is a congregation we first mentioned to you in November. And also then that consultation for you has gone through various times. The first time you would have heard from the church wardens and myself is following the PCC meeting on the 11th of November, which Sarah told you about, when the PCC said that we needed to make changes. On the 8th of December, Brian and myself, as church wardens, spoke to both the 8 o'clock and the 10 o'clock congregation, telling you why we were having to make changes. And we highlighted in that address to you that services, times, frequencies, and styles would needed to be reviewed and refreshed. That was on the 8th of November. We then also made further addresses to you throughout the period between now and then. We had 2 Vision Sundays. We had a Vision Sunday on the 16th of February, telling you about the future and where we were heading from St Mary's. You will have heard again from us as church wardens about the consultation with things and asking for any inputs or any concerns you had. That was another opportunity to hear from us. We then did another Vision Sunday. This time it was the 16th of March. Again, highlighting where we were and highlighting that we will be looking at adjusting and changing the service patterns, styles, and times. But that wasn't the last time you heard from us. As church wardens, we made an address with all the survey results, and those survey results were presented to you on the I think it was early in March, I believe. But then we did also the 8 o'clock congregation had a presentation of the church wardens on the 30th of March, telling about the changes we were planning. On the 6th of April, the 10 o'clock service, we again communicated to that, as we also did on the 13th of April, explaining about things. I raise this to let you know that for more than 18 months, we've let you know changes happen. We've provided more than 5 occasions addressing what those changes were and providing you with the opportunity. And also to reassure you that these changes have not been made by the vicar or the church wardens alone. They have been after extensive consultation and discussions at PCC, not all of which was unanimous, but it was agreed at a majority level, and with the support of the diocese who have been involved right through. The Archdeacon was involved, the Church Mission Enabler teams, multiple occasions of going through from that. That concludes my presentation. I was asked to hear about the changes of things. Some changes that already happened, some changes which are already delivering really positive results, like our new organist, like the choir, and some of the children's work as well for that. And also some of the ones which are coming up, which we know and accept are going to attract some disappointment. But we ask to work with us on these, because the change doesn't have to be cemented. If we have to adjust changes, we can do that. But we are experimenting, we are moving forward to try and have a future from St Mary's. Because unless we change, there's not going to be a future for the St Mary's you see and love today, unless we can appeal to more people and attract more people to come from that. Thank you for your attention.
Well, it's a chance now for you to ask questions. We are entering any other business item of our agenda.
Can I just ask what's happening on the 5th Sunday of the month?
Good.
Are there any services? Are there any services?
Yeah. Thank you. I've heard that.
Let me repeat the question. Vicar, will there still be services on the 5th Sunday?
Yes. That is still to be decided. There clearly will be a service, maybe even 2, but the PCC will address that at their next meeting in May. And the next 5th Sunday will be in June. So June, August, and November. All I can reassure you at this stage, there will be a communion service. Communion will be offered, but we don't know in which context yet, because the PCC needs to discuss it and come to a decision. But great question.
Helen.
Right. I hope everyone can hear me because I don't have a particularly loud voice. I'm here putting forward a resolution. The PCC was presented, I feel, almost by a fait accompli by the 2 church wardens and the vicar, but the 8 a.m. service would only have 2 communions a month. I am uncomfortable that the proposed change was not supported by a clear rationale as to the aims in broad terms, including whether this is a pathway to eventually closing the service. The possible pros and cons were not considered, neither were the effects. Effects include a possible impact on giving if the 8 a.m. members go to a different church. There's an effect on pastoral care. There's also an impact on holding only 2 services a month, on the more casual attendees who quite frequently turn up to the 8 a.m. service, if they turn up and find the church closed. Options for resourcing the 8A service in other ways were not considered. Without this consideration, I do not feel that a fully informed decision could be made. I do not think the proposed changes to the 8 o'clock service will increase numbers attending St Mary's. Those like myself who find God in contemplation and quiet moments will not find that in the 10 a.m. service, and those who prefer a 10 o'clock service style will not enjoy the 8 a.m. service. I find it extremely disappointing that there is a drive at St Mary's to make us all worship in the same way. It is obvious that the PCC majority and vicar want the 10 a.m. way, rather than the appreciation that individuals worship in different ways, as individuals have done throughout the centuries. Alternating dates will confuse regular 8 o'clock attendees, and those that turn up occasionally will find the church shut. A dreadful advertisement for Church of England in the 21st century. Dimitri was appointed with an 8 a.m. service every week. The 8 a.m. congregation is typically 10 plus people, average 12 in 2024, rising to 27 at the recent Easter Sunday service. This is over 10% of the total congregation for a typical Sunday attendance, and a greater percentage for Christmas and Easter. My resolution is that we continue with a weekly 8 a.m. communion service until a full analysis has been undertaken of the effect of the proposed changes. A detailed analysis is required of the aim, the effect, how, whether alternatives exist, and a clear rationale based on the analysis that supports the proposed change.
Thank you.
You don't need to repeat, I've heard it all. Would you like me to respond to that or not?
Sorry, say what you wanted to say?
It's a resolution, so.
Okay, there's no resolution on the table. Margaret, question?
I hadn't intended to speak, but I just want to say that one of the things that was on the slide that Mark showed us was the business of the evening service. Now, to me, that is very important because it demonstrates that St Mary's is a wide church. And that's always been something very important for me. And I think that in looking at the changes, that's something that isn't being changed. And I welcome that. I also want to say that I appreciate the fact that we've been having some courses, but the courses seem to me not to be geared at feeding those of us who have been Christians for a long time. And I think that it's important that we continue to nurture our faith. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Any other questions?
Excuse me. I moved to Horsell 10 years ago and was made very welcome at the 8 o'clock service by Sarah and the congregation. Sarah organised social evenings in the rectory for the congregation to get together, so we really had a community together. The decision to only hold 2 communion services at 8 a month is an unacceptable decision. If not reconsidered, would result in some of us questioning our continued attendance at St Mary's. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, two things. You said about Friday morning. Well, Friday morning, the flower arrangers rearrange the flowers. Are we still going to be able to do that while you're holding a meeting here? I want to ask you.
Okay, so answering that question, it's already happened, and it hasn't had an issue so far.
You don't mind?
No.
Right. Now, the other thing is, the 8 o'clock service has a staunch following. We do enjoy visiting vicars coming in to give a different service, and they, like this morning, it's uplifting and it's very well attended when it is publicised. I think it's very wrong to shut the church every other Sunday morning for the 8 o'clock. I can't see the expense of another service. I really don't. You're going to open the church at 10 o'clock. We don't use the screen. We use the books. We just need a vicar to lead the service.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? One behind.
Thank you, Mark. As a member of...
We'll get.
Sorry?
Carry on, sorry.
All right. After a period of 50 years when I avoided being a member of the PCC, as a 20-year-old I was. I joined the PCC with the specific aim of supporting the 8 o'clock service on a Sunday, which was under threat. That has been reinstated, but once again is now under threat. Is Woking generally served by too many Christian churches with small congregations? That's obviously something that I think has been looked at, and it's something that needs addressing. Equally, I think the end of the Second World War had a massive effect on church numbers. When I started my churchmanship, 8 o'clock services had an attendance of getting on for 100, and there was another communion service at 9 o'clock, which probably had 300, and matins at 11:15, and evensong at 6:30. BBC paid to evensong with the Forsyth saga because people went home and watched that. The Anglican Church is a Catholic church, Catholic spelt with a small c, which caters for differing types of churchmanship and worship, high, middle and low, and anything in between. It seems that our 8 o'clock service is not being punished, but is suffering as a result of various reasons, including cost. The government attacked the boomer generation by taking away the winter fuel payment. Taxation limits have stayed as they are, so more and more people are either moving into taxation or higher rate taxation. Now, this is particularly contentious, but I had a few thoughts during the course of the week, and I've written a few comments down, and I will finish in a minute. But following the resignation of the Archbishop of Canterbury, the death of the Pope, perhaps the time is right for the two churches to reunite with a new leader. And what better candidate than the former Speaker's chaplain, Dame the Right Reverend Rose Hudson Wilkin, who is female, black, served both sides of politics in the House of Commons, and is required to step into the shoes of the Archbishop of Canterbury as and when required. Thank you for your time.
I think we've got a question from Roy One. Microphone's coming.
Mark, you mentioned removing the back two pews from the south aisle. I really would encourage you to leave them. I think they're an important facility. Because some Joe public can come in off the street, sidle round the side there, feel inconspicuous, and work out what on earth's going on, see what we're up to.
Okay, we can take that on board and make that part of our decisions. Any more questions? Anyone got a question here?
What's like the long-term aim of the services? Is it to have like two informal, just have like an even split of it, informal and formal? Is that like the long-term, it will sort of stay like that as catering for different people?
Well, that's currently a plan for now. I can't
Yeah.
say long-term or short-term, you know, because we're using this word experimenting. But yes, we will be alternating between parish communion and informal services.
We've got another question here.
Well, first, I would like to thank very much the great amount of work that the PCC has obviously undertaken in putting together these new suggestions. And it's obviously clear that some of those suggestions have worries for certain people. I think moving forward is very, very important, and I welcome that. I think music is very important, and I do think that the music you are now bringing in, and I went to one of the recent musical services, I thought that was excellent, and I do actually welcome that strongly and feel that people will begin to come more and their families will come along. In the 19th century, almost all churches had bands, and when you went to church in the sort of late 1800s, you would have a small band, very much in this tradition. And the likelihood is that at this particular church, we're simply returning to the tradition that we had many years ago. On the question of the 8 a.m. communion, unfortunately, I never wake up early enough to get there. But it occurs to me, the 6:30, there are two gaps there. I mean, would it be totally impossible to have a simple communion service in the two gaps of the 6:30 that we have? I mean, this is partly a personal thing. I prefer going to something at 6:30 than 8 a.m. But anyway, it's a thought. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? So a question from Rebecca.
Out of interest, how many of you would be interested in coming along to Messy Church? Raise your hand. And to see that as an evangelism opportunity to chat to the families and build relationships with them. Because what I see is we have, 40 children or plus sometimes coming to that. And imagine if we could share Jesus' love with them and then see them coming, like I said to the other group. So just raise your hand if you would be interested in ever coming to a Messy Church, chatting to the families, getting to know them. Thank you. Please do come and chat to me at some point. That's great.
Brian, you wanted to say something? No?
No, I was just going to comment, if I may, on the 8 o'clock service, which I do come to quite regularly, certainly whenever there is a guest's vicar coming in, because Dimitri's on holiday, etc. Guest vicars cost money. We have to pay them. So please don't forget that. It's not cheap. As well as being expensive, it's also, I find it somewhat embarrassing to have a guest vicar come in here, sometimes a very highly qualified vicar, as in this morning, and he's faced with 6, 7, 8 people at most. I think it's very good that the PCC, of which you're a member of, voted to maintain the 8 o'clock twice, in the hope that some more people from the 10 o'clock who like communion, as I do, would on those occasions go along to 8 o'clock, and maybe we could then have more people at 8 o'clock and hopefully make it a viable service for the future. Because at the moment, it isn't. But this hopefully will achieve that. And maintaining communion every week in this church, including the 5th Sunday, is something that I think we all want to do, and we will be doing. Okay, sometimes one has to get up a little bit earlier, but you know that's good. And the existing 8 o'clock communion people are being given a choice as to which 8 o'clock service they want to have on those 2 Sundays, which I don't think we've really had a response on that yet. Is it common worship or is it Book of Common Prayer? Book of Common Prayer. Please make up a decision and let the church know. Sorry, that was just what I wanted to say.
No.
Hello everyone. I often serve in the informal service. It's been so nice to see so much joy in the room when I came in today to the service here. I think it's great, and I think it's really good that how good the choir was and all the organs and everything today was really good, and it was really uplifting to see. I have a question about the informal service, of if there's a possibility of doing a different style of communion, and sometimes incorporating it into the informal service. Let's say, like in the Book of Common Prayer, there's like I think it's the communion D one, which is a lot shorter, which then can still, which is a bit shorter, and then it can still, as let's say, if the service grows, then it still shows people like how important and how crucial communion is to show everyone how Jesus died for us and what a brilliant thing it is. So yeah, my question is there any possibility, like further down the line, of using a more simplified communion in the informal service?
Well, thank you for the suggestion. We're not discounting that. And especially if we start seeing, completely new community emerging, absolutely we would like to give them a chance, to experience communion. So definitely. And that's the kind of conversation we're going to have about the 5th Sunday. Definitely communion, but in which context? So we'll see, definitely, yeah. We'll need to consider that. Thank you. May I respond to a number of comments in regards to 8 o'clock? A few things to say. Well, first of all, the reason the PCC discussed 8 o'clock, because we've responded to what you've said in the church survey. And a significant number of you said, stop 8 o'clock. So we could have gone that way and stopped 8 o'clock. Well, you say no, but we've got written papers where people said, stop 8 o'clock. So the PCC discussed this idea. Well, you might say whatever you say. We've got papers. Helen, do you still have papers? That's it? So there was a slide. I finish, David, and then you'll get a chance, all right? Well, I see your hand. So there was a slide in the presentation when we put out all the top ideas that people spoke for us to discuss and consider. And one of them was clearly stated, stop. Not reduce, but stop, 8 o'clock. So PCC discussed that. And I think we've come up with a good compromise, without stopping, but reducing. Also, people who speak for 8 o'clock, I see where you're coming from. You're thinking about one service, and you're thinking about the needs of those who attend that service, which is a fair point to you. I understand that. The PCC had to look much wider. They had to look at all the services, all the congregations, and as well as those who might be joining us in not so distant future. So we had to see and discuss wider picture rather than just one particular service. We've compared ourselves, what we're offering in terms of communions and styles with other churches in the area. There was quite a robust paper there, which was outlining 23 churches in this area, what kind of services they offer and how often they offer communion service. 9 out of those 23 offer communion at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock every week. 14 twice or less. So we are currently being one of those 9. But there seems to be a drive forward across many churches in this area and in the wider diocese that 8 o'clock communions have been reduced. And that's what Mark was alluding when he said, when we spoke to the diocese and shared what we would like to do, and we've been reassured that's the way forward. There seems to be a good practice among the churches who would like to grow. Only a year or 2 ago, we had a few people coming from us from Bisley Church, which is a parish church not far from us, on the other side of Woking. They made a decision to reduce 8 o'clock to twice a month. And I obviously greeted those people and I asked, what brings you here? And that's what they told me, because the PCC made the decision to reduce from 4 to 2. So that's happening. We're not the first. I'd like us to be a pioneering church, but in a way we are lagging behind in many ways. What the diocese said to us, what seems to us as a very radical and drastic ideas, in fact, changes, in fact, they're not that radical and drastic. And they would actually suggest it to us go even deeper in terms of our changes and do them all at once, because they're feeling that we will be doing more changes in the months and years to come. And they said to us, why do you do it incrementally if you could do it all at once? Whatever it might mean, I'm not going to give you any examples at this point. So they feel, in 6 months, 12 months, again, we will be thinking of further changes. So they said, maybe do it once, but go deeper, and everyone will get used to them. Otherwise, in 6 months, we're just getting used to them, and you're saying to us, let's do something different, and then so on and so forth. So that was one of the ideas. So we're not doing anything that other churches are not doing there. In fact, we're doing less than other churches who would like to grow are doing. You think about it, 10 o'clock are prepared to sacrifice something. They sacrifice in one of those services so we may grow 10 o'clock. So the question I asked PCC when we were discussing 8 o'clock, what is 8 o'clock? Or 8 o'clock are prepared to sacrifice in order to grow? And I don't think, the PCC, we're feeling now, obviously, I cannot speak on the whole PCC, that we can't see any growth at 8 o'clock. I think we are in the phase of maintaining. And the question is how far we can maintain, how long we can go like that. We looked at the attendance, and as Mark said, the attendance been going down. Before COVID, 18 people on average were attending 8 o'clock. In 2023, 13. 2024, 12. If we carry on like that this year, probably it will be 11. I do understand for Christmas and Easter we get in middle 20s, but usually, as Brian said, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever, 11 maybe. So on average probably will be 11 this year. So the question would be, okay, if we're not going to do anything to 8 o'clock, at some point you will have to stop it anyway. It hasn't got longevity in it, 10 years max, even if we do it on a weekly basis. Well, in regards to resolution, I'm not quite sure that you just come just like that and throw it at us to vote on any resolution. It hasn't been agreed. But what you can do, and I recommend, wrong information regardless that you can only ask questions. So while Mark is looking wherever he wants to look, I just want to continue. Because it was PCC decisions rather than church wardens, and the vicar has obviously been acknowledged there, the best way forward for anyone who has certain concerns or disagree with that decision is to put that in writing and present it to the PCC to discuss it at the next meeting. And if they deem your concerns legit and, appropriate...
Dimitri, let me explain it. Is the microphone on here? Yeah. So under the Church Representations Act, section M7.1, which talks about the annual meeting, M7.1b lets any one member of the person can ask for a particular recommendation to be raised to the PCC meeting in relation. And so, Helen, this would be supporting the request you put can be put to the PCC at its next meeting, and that's supported by M7.1b clause in that regulation. Yeah, or B, which we've decided to go for. We've decided to go for B, which if you take your case to the PCC at the next meeting.
And to be honest with you, Helen, I didn't say anything different to you because we've been in touch face-to-face, by email. I just repeated, for the sake of others, what I already was saying in regards to 8 o'clock. So if you're on time, put it in letter, and let the PCC just to discuss if they feel that's something they want to discuss. Also, I would like to say it was a robust discussion in regards to 8 o'clock at the PCC. It wasn't unanimous. It was approved by majority, but some people abstained or disagreed. And we have 2 representatives of 8 o'clock at the PCC, so they had the chance to speak and defend their case. Sorry, David, of course. You had your hand. Absolutely. What I meant by that question, everything you can see on that slide, page 20 or slide 20 or 21, Helen, I pointed out, there were top choices, top suggestions, So everything what you see on that slide, it's top of the list. Because 135 people responded. Can you imagine how many suggestions we had? More than 200. What made on that final slide, about 10, they are all top suggestions. That's exactly what I meant by that statement. It was top of the list. I didn't say the number one. Read it again, that email. Top of the list. Top of the list. Top of the list of 200 suggestions. I mean, I just explained to you what I meant. If it came across wrongly, I explained to you what I meant.
So in our sermon this morning at 10 o'clock, the preacher talked about evidence and cited John's Gospel for that. The evidence of the declining numbers was the numbers we got. We take numbers every single service. The numbers, average number attending the 8 o'clock service in 23, in 24, and in this year here, that is a declining number, and now we're on an average of under 10 on a Sunday. So we do have the evidence for it, and that was part of the evidence which was submitted to you, Helen, also as member of the PCC. You saw those graphs, you saw those evidence, and it... We got a new battery.
I wasn't looking forward to a new battery, sorry. It's obviously a very sensitive issue, the 8 o'clock, the Sunday 8 o'clock service, which I personally like very much indeed. Okay, so there are only a dozen of us at the most, but it seems to me, and it does seem to me that we're not going to grow the congregation. I think that's a fact of the matter. The 8 o'clock service isn't attractive, and we're not going to grow. However, I'm disappointed because I do feel that we are a loyal group, and I feel that it would be so nice if you could be loyal to us, because we are, as I said, we're a loyal group. We all enjoy the quiet of that service. If it's a question of money, then it's not a question of money. Okay, because we could help with that as a group. We've talked about that. So it's not. But anyway, I'm just disappointed because I do think we're not going to grow the service. That's probably a fact. But it would be so wonderful if we could continue on a weekly basis. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Oh, we've got a few more hands. James first, I think, and then June.
Has it been considered by those at the APCM to meet up in their houses and pray together? Is that not a feasible?
Well, it's a lovely idea. So 8 o'clockers are present here, so they might just consider that.
I do not go to the 8 o'clock service because it was a bit early for me. But reverting back to the survey, and there were apparently quite a lot of people who said that it should be scrapped. But they're the people that never go.
Of course.
So it's an idea that they think, well, I don't go to the 8 o'clock service, we could scrap that and that would help. But it isn't affecting me at all.
I know. Well, that's why we didn't go with the suggestion to stop. That's why is it when reducing and give an opportunity to 8 o'clockers to attend parish communion at 10 o'clock, which I don't think is that different.
We've already spoken. No, you've already spoken, Alan, for quite a long time.
Does anybody who hasn't spoken wish to speak? So the question was about what is the advantage of reducing the 8 o'clock service to only twice. That was the question for that.
Would like to tackle, or shall I answer? Just trying to think, what's the advantage? What's the disadvantage of the same hand? It's a good question to ask. I think it comes down to where does it fit in overall church's vision, what we're trying to achieve. Can we produce growth? And the answer probably no, probably we can't produce growth. We can only maintain it. If we keep maintaining, are we maintaining it up to what level? When it gets to 10, 9 o'clock, or attending on a weekly basis? I don't know. So I think the PCC just felt we can't expect great results. And maybe what James suggested, meeting together, praying on those weeks when we're not having communion, or coming here for 10 o'clock for communion service would be the answer when we're not having those services. for 8 o'clock. Anything else would like to add? Anything else to my answer?
The advantage of stopping the 8 o'clock. Since I've been running it, when I first came, Sarah was doing it. It was a really different service. She put her all into it, and she gave a sermon, and it was a wonderful service. And she went around to people's houses afterwards and encouraged people to go. But that hasn't happened, whether it's COVID or whatever. It's not the same because the service.
Perhaps 8 o'clockers can come together and they come up with a list of ideas to the PCC, how the service can be changed, so they can consider. And for example, if you choose to have a sermon, that could be one of the suggestions. But, I mean, feel free. That's it then, yeah? Alan, I think Mark said you already had a chance to speak.
Yeah, several people have had several chances. What I want to say is 8 o'clock is a very quiet, contemplative service. A lot of praying goes on there, which would not necessarily be possible in amongst the 10 o'clock service. That's all I've got to say.
Okay. So I would, okay.
So I just want to add something as an ex-treasurer. The disadvantage is the impact of losing people going to the 8 o'clock. It'd be interesting to see what percentage of giving they give, and if they audibly, how that would affect our giving in the next year.
It's a good point, but I know from chatting to David, I cannot have access to this information because he doesn't believe it's good for me, the vicar, to know who gives what. So I don't know who gives what, you know. So I would be never able to answer this question, which impact it will have. So that's the answer to your question. So my advice would be, you know, for the 8 o'clockers to write to the PCC, express their concerns, but also put forward, you know, some ideas how they would like to reform their service so it can grow and develop. And I can't guarantee what the answer will be by the PCC, but that's the right way forward. Currently, as it's been agreed, the changes to 8 o'clock coming into effect from June. Changes to 10 o'clock coming into effect from May, so from next Sunday. So that's it. I think we're closing the floor now to all the questions. Thank you very much for for saying everything what you had to say. And I finish with a prayer. Thank you, Father. Thank you for this meeting, for this honest and frank discussion. And we do appreciate, Father, you know, what you had to say to us through every single person. We pray now, Father, for the way forward, how we're going to move forward with all the changes in implementation. Father, help us to maintain this dialogue, this conversation, so we know what we're doing is the right thing to do. But above all, I pray that you will bring us all together on this journey of change, because we don't want to lose people or to send people away. So speak to us, reassure us, and let us know for sure, you know, what we're doing. Because in our hearts we have this desire to change in order to grow and bring more people in. So help us, Father, to know what we're doing. It's fulfilling that brief. And above all, you know, Father, that's what you would want us to do. In the name of Jesus. Amen. Well, thank you for coming. We will take on what was being said.